Some tasks I think we should do through robotic work for something which is not safe, which is really heavy. That's
taxing
all great.
On the body, unhealthy. Yeah.
We will not replace a human, but we will enable and empower a human worker.
Today I speak with Mareike Kritzler, who heads a Siemens research group in Berkeley, California. Her smart machine vision and visualization team focuses on augmented reality and how it can be used to help humans and technology work better together, often by giving people what she likes to call digital superpowers. Today we talk about how her background in geoinformatics led to her fascinating research involving mice, RFID chips, and Alzheimer's. We'll learn how her current work is transforming augmented reality from an entertaining gimmick into a powerful tool to make an impact on society by improving workplace safety and even helping scientists protect our coral reefs. Here's my conversation with Mareike Kritzler. We live in a time where design and technology touch every aspect of our lives. But where did it all come from? Who designed it? How is it built and brought to market? What will it look like in a year, 2 years, 100 years? From the phones and smartwatches that help us in our day-to-day to the cutting-edge spaceships and 3D printers that are leading us into the future, modern design is constantly shaping the way we work, communicate, problem solve, and play. And every new design, big or small, starts with an idea and a bill of materials. I'm Magenta Strongheart, and this is The Bomb, where we talk to leading innovators in the tech world and celebrate the transformational power of design. Welcome to The Bomb. I'm so happy to have you here today, and it was great to first get introduced to your lab a couple days ago and visit your space in Berkeley. I think it'd be helpful probably for our listeners to just kind of start with your current role and what you're doing at your lab.
Thank you for having me. I'm a research group head for Siemens Technology. We are located in Berkeley. My team is split between the coasts, and we do research for smart machine vision and visualization.
That, I imagine, covers a lot of ground, especially these days. There's so much going on, so much technology evolving very quickly in those spaces. So I'm really excited to dig into that further in this conversation. I got to see a few projects when I was there. But I think that it might be helpful to get a little bit of a grounding of how long you've been in this space, how long you've been with Siemens Technology, before we kind of rewind and learn more about how you got there. So you've been there over 10 years, I believe, right?
Not quite yet,
okay.
But I'm going close. I've been with Siemens Technology, always Siemens Technology in Berkeley for around 9 years. I think my 9th anniversary is May 5th.
Okay, awesome.
And we have this office in Berkeley, which we share with one other research group. And yeah, we do research for all of our different Siemens businesses.
And so could you walk us through the core kind of Siemens businesses that you guys serve?
So this will be all of the Siemens businesses. We have Siemens doing mobility, Siemens Mobility. We have the health and use, which are now a little bit separate. We have Siemens Digital Industries, Siemens Digital Factories. So everything from factory automation, healthcare, mobility, and Siemens infrastructure. We serve or support all of the different business units with their needs.
And you mentioned when I first met you that there's several other research groups that you guys are connected with, right, that are serving different departments as well. Can you remind me how many other groups there are and kind of some of the other locations you guys are spread across?
Yeah, so our main hub is in Princeton in New Jersey, and we also are function internationally. So the US, it's Princeton, Berkeley, and Charlotte, and then we are mainly located in Germany, in India, and China, and have a network of over 2,000 people in this technology world serving our business units.
Wow. And how often do you communicate with all those different groups? Would you say you guys are pretty siloed or you're in constant communication?
We're in constant communication exchange. Some projects we do together, project proposals together. So mainly Siemens Technology is divided into the company core technologies. This is focused investments by the full company in different research activities, if you will. And my group is part of the Siemens Digital Twin and Simulations core technology, but we also have groups for robotics, cybersecurity, and many, many more. There's an awesome link on our website, I believe.
We can put it in the show notes and people can learn more there. Absolutely. And I think our audience is if they didn't already know, they're definitely warming up to understanding digital twin better, because recently we've done several interviews, of course, just at Siemens Realize Live in Las Vegas. And even before that, we were talking with Zvi Foer and Brenda Disher, where we got a nice introduction to a lot of the digital twin kind of technology that's being developed and obviously already out there serving the industry. So excited to dive into that more. And before we get into the specific projects and technology, let's go back a little bit. I'd love to learn about your previous kind of education. What got you involved in this space? I did a little bit of research and, learned that you were working on kind of geoinformation and research in that space. And in some of the interviews, I stalked a little bit of your past interviews. I really liked that you talked about kind of finding that balance between having an impact, but also still getting to do the research and be supported in an R&D kind of space, right? So I'd love to hear how you started and how you got to kind of this role now.
Happy to. I will try to keep it short. Formal education in geoinformatics, geosciences back in Germany. And I did my PhD in that field, and we have something diploma, which is like a master's. And it was an interdisciplinary study. So we learned a lot about how to integrate between the computer scientists and the geoscientists. And back in the day, GPS, geoinformation, wayfinding, travel and sales problems were all things we looked into. It was really focused on the computer science. So I learned how to program. And what really changed my view of not the world, but what I want to do was one of the projects I worked on as a student, tracking mice in a cage, real mice, and to help the scientists in the biology department to understand when and where the mice move, to have then this plugged into their research for Alzheimer's. So to really make information available, make it accessible, translate data into information. That was a really interesting project for me. And from there, I found my first job in a company that does augmented reality. So superimpose information, digital videos or little animations into the field of view. So you have kind of Superman, Superwoman power as the user. And from there, this was really startup-y, product-based, project-based. There was a lot of programming, and the research aspect got lost in that field for me. And then through chance, I had the opportunity to start at Siemens in Berkeley for technology, and to go back a little bit to the research side of things, have a little bit more time to find the best solution to develop something that has more impact than a little application that runs on your mobile phone. And now I'm so fortunate to have my own research group, so I can expand from what I could bring to the table, the AR, now also with semantic and information domain knowledge, and then the machine vision piece.
Yeah, that's so awesome to now be running your own space around these concepts. And I have a few questions going back to some of those projects you mentioned, because they sound really interesting. So with the mice tracking, you said essentially it was contributing to research around Alzheimer's. Could you tell us a little bit more about how that was connected, and what were some of the, what was the hypothesis for the project?
Yes. I have to dig a little bit in memory, but the main idea was to put mice in a bigger space. And we designed a space in a way that we could understand when and where they move. And the hypothesis was, the more you move, the more enrichment you have as a mouse, the fewer are your symptoms in Alzheimer's. So you, like Alzheimer's, the mice didn't really have that disease, but a genetic disposure for that. And we could then prove or see how much the mouse would move, where the mouse would go, what the mouse would do. They had RFID transponders and antennas. We designed this in that cage, and we could really then see where they go based on the RFID tags, and help the researchers to really understand how long were they drinking, how long were they on the level where there were more toys and things like.
Yeah, interesting. We had a project a while back, a residency, a resident at Design Lab who was working on emotive robots for Alzheimer's therapy. And the idea was creating essentially like a robotic pet that by feeding the pet, which would be like charging or something like that, by having this routine with the pet, the patient with Alzheimer's would be reminded to do some of these things for themselves. But I think also speaks to a little bit about what you're saying about having a routine, basically needing to move around and do these different tasks can be beneficial in, I think, decreasing or slowing down some of the symptoms, as you mentioned.
Exactly. Before you get to a space where you've unfortunately forgotten most of the things
too far
that you
gone.
wanted.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, really interesting, incredible work that's being done there. And so another thing you mentioned, you were in AR, it sounds like rather early on in your career. What year was that you were first working on that project?
Now you asked me a question. It must have been sometime around 2012-ish, 11, something like that, I believe. I started in Munich in that company. And with that company, I transitioned then to the US and worked on different projects.
And what do you think? I know we'll get into this in more detail, but if you could distill, one thing that's been most surprising, you've seen how the technology's evolved and progressed in that time since you first started working on AR to now what you're doing in that space?
This is a great question because when I started AR, it was a gimmick. Mm-hmm. It was something on top of a TV magazine where you had a schedule and you could watch little trailers of the movie or little Mickey Mouse.
So it was really entertainment,
gimmick, marketing.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had one cute project where we had a reminder, or it was a reward. The AR was a reward for kids when they learned how to do potty for Kimberly Clark. Something. But
it's still important work.
It's still important work. But was now also being at the Siemens side of things, we can really use AR to support the human workforce to make sure that you will be well educated as a worker in a place where you assemble things and also help for quality assurance. So this technology really went from an extra nice to have gimmick to something that can be really essential to keep workers educated and also to train the workforce.
And this was something I got to see firsthand in person at the Siemens lift facility in Detroit recently, and also the MXD facility in Chicago. So I'd love for you to walk the audience through, since most of them are going to be listening. So we have to help them visualize what does that really look like for the workforce. So you can walk through one example maybe in detail, but I don't want to give it away. So I'll let you take it away. But kind of how is that set up, and what is the employees' kind of experience getting to use this AR overlay?
And there are many different flavors, but one of my favorite projects that we did is the idea also that you have workforce being in the workplace, let's say for 30 years. And at some point, this person is going to retire, it's going to get sick, but all the knowledge is in the head of this person. It's almost you drive stick shift and then you are supposed to explain it to somebody else in your own words. It's really hard sometimes to translate emotion into a sentence or words. So we had a first project to try out how we can use AR in that world, that we just watch someone through a camera system. We train the underlying vision system to understand, what do you touch? What do you grab? I assemble something and then the system can detect the things you touch with a light. How are we built up? And then put this information, blue on top of red, on top of green, into an underlying domain knowledge model. This is on top of this, on top of that. We could save that, and you can do it with any type of camera, but we use the HoloLens, one of our favorite devices, because it's hands-free. You wear it on your head, and you can use your hands for your normal task. And then in the second setup, once you have this knowledge recorded, you give it to a novice worker or anybody else you want to train, and you can see these instructions. You have like an IKEA or Lego instructions in 3D right in front of you. You can almost touch the instructions and you just follow those. And again, a vision algorithm can capture this, play it back to make sure that you have done the right part, and really walk you through all these assembly steps.
Really mind-blowing stuff. When I saw it in person, it was pretty exciting. I mean, it's like almost a video game overlay over your hands that are right in front of you. And it is trippy. I still, even though I've gotten, more and more experiences to use AR and HoloLens and different technologies, it's still so crazy to see it happen right in front of you. Like, you're just looking through the glass and still seeing your physical environment and the things that are on the table and whatnot. So I'm curious with that. Well, I think something that's really awesome about what you described as far as training the model by just having someone do the task, the expert or the pro that's been doing it forever, do it how they've always done it. And there's not this additional layer of needing to, which I think is probably a barrier to entry when some businesses think about adopting this kind of technology, you don't need to make a 3D model of this and then animate the 3D model to do it. And then that's what's going to be programming the instructions in the future. It's literally like you put on the goggles and you go into, I imagine, you go into the setting where you're training it and you're setting the standard essentially.
And sometimes the most easy solution is the best. As I mentioned, we don't need fancy 3D models and shaders and textures and lights. If I just want to show you what to grab, it can sometimes be just as easy as an arrow in the description in the text. Grab the microphone, and this will be really simple. And this also takes off the extra cognitive load to now translate what do I see versus what do I do now. I just point with an arrow on the object to grab it, and that makes it quite easy for people to follow instructions.
Exactly. And it actually reminds me of another project we were involved in, the Hackaday Prize winner for, I'm totally forgetting which year it was. They're all a blur now, but I believe it was 2018, was the Dexter robotic arm. And what was something that was, I think, a big kind of added value that, they really promoted how they differentiated from some of the other arms that were on the market at the time. And they were really kind of targeting when it came to, they did a lot of education, but when it came to kind of business applications, they were targeting smaller to medium-sized businesses that couldn't afford, a $10,000 robotic arm, but might be able to expedite a few processes with a smaller arm that was easy to program. And the way that they made it, quote, I'm doing air quotes for this, but the way they made it, quote unquote, easy to program is they had this follow me mode, which was great, where they could, physically, you put it in the follow me mode, the robot arm, and then you could move it around, just whatever speed is comfortable for you with your hand. You move around, the head with whatever fixture it had, if it's a grabber or whatever. Move it, pick up the thing, move it to the next area, drop the thing, whatever the step might be. And then in that way, it was a lot more approachable for folks that might have a business where they're not even involved in technology or programming. They don't want the overhead or the work to, take that on. And it could be a lot more, approachable and not intimidating. And of course, they also had a great support network where if something went wrong, they could help, which is important. But that whole being able to program these technologies in
without
an intuitive
programming
way,
yes.
Exactly, without programming, in an intuitive way where you're really getting to just use what you know, is really powerful.
Absolutely agree. And especially when we see we wanted this level of entry, keep it low. We want to make this accessible for as many people in the workforce. We see a lot of people quit, change jobs. And if we have these easier ways to interact with the things we need while assembling something, pick and placing, this will help really to keep the workforce in the workforce. And we don't have to go all the way out with really complicated programming, which will not bring a benefit to the solution of the problem.
Absolutely. And so what's something that you're really excited that you're currently working on? It could be related to this or another project you want to talk about.
Yes, I'm really excited that we now can take some of the things we learned from the digital twinning to a different field. Siemens, we may make trains, as I mentioned earlier. We make industrial equipment, but we have a project right now that we really love. We build a digital twin for a coral reef. So we are able now to take a lot of our learnings and bring this to the world of sustainability. And this really changes also for us the gears before, as I mentioned in the very beginning, interdisciplinary work, science, geoscience, now little bit back in that world. We work with the WUHI, the Woodsole Oceanographic Institution, and it's really great to do something that might have a bigger impact for our planet. And we are really excited to build this digital reef, the twin of a coral reef. And you can already see some videos. We have a website.
We'll also have to link
also
that.
Link that.
We'll have a catalog of links on this episode, definitely.
But this is really exciting to see how we can transition now in a completely different domain, still using technology that we have researched in a really industrial focus.
Absolutely. And what's been the most kind of fun part of that project? Like, I remember you were talking to me a little bit in our previous conversation about some of the communication, process, understanding, being able to kind of speak the same language, which was a challenge at first. And you guys kind of got through that. But working with new collaborators, I'm sure is always fun and interesting and new, adds a little spice to the experience.
It adds a lot of learning, but it was really great for us then to see once we could break through to really understand there is a vision of someone who has touch the corals that are dying rapidly, and there's us in front of a computer typing code, and then really bring this to life. And the first time we could show visuals to our collaborators and see what we could do out of data, that was a really great moment to translate data into information
and seeing it click for them finally. I just had a conversation with Jay yesterday, actually, who used to work, who works at a number of fabrication facilities, mostly supporting innovative technology. They just were advising on a space in Detroit that's being funded by Ford and New Lab. And so similar to kind of Design Lab, a lot of different stakeholders and whatnot. And we were just talking about kind of our passion for hands-on building and the satisfaction of bringing something from concept to reality and how empowering that can be. So I feel like it's similar when you're working with collaborators who are maybe not used to that. They're focused more on their experience with the environment, on their, I'm not totally sure. It was a nonprofit, right? And they're working on, I imagine, kind of environmental conservation and those sort of things. Being able to have that kind of aha moment where it clicks into place and they see what went from your kind of napkin sketch, right, to a realized project.
And what you mentioned, I think that's where the crux is, because we cannot show the parts, because our parts is code, bits and bytes. At least
you're not showing the wooden mock-up or anything like that.
So we had some drawings and some mock-ups, but it's all static and it looks in a certain way and you can't really touch it. It's all digital. But once you have something and it moves a little bit, there's an animation and you see the different colors and that comes to life. That's exactly the aha moment. And then also you see, okay, they told me I wouldn't see anything the first X months because they just sit there and have to code it and then it will be ready.
Yeah, that kind of delayed satisfaction, right? But it's worth it.
And the anticipation. Will it really work?
Exactly. And so what's the kind of next phase of that project? What happens now that the coral reef digital twin exists?
We're still in the middle of making it. So we just finished almost the first module and there will be a few more to come. So there will be different simulations added on. So first was just to make the frame, if you will, and to have the different types of information, temperature, and the benthic information. So what actually grows and is on the coral reef, all this visible. And it's an ongoing project. And I think we have at least another year to make it a fully fleshed digital reef to try out and work with.
So once the coral reef, it's public, people can access it online. And is the idea really for community engagement, for people to be able to understand and explore, even if they can't go there in person, and then be able to contribute to kind of the conservation efforts?
It's many-fold. So the main focus is to build this for scientists and then to help scientists as a knowledge tool, the decision-making tool. So this is the first group of users where you have really heavy computations in the back end, and then you can see different plots and see different maps and then see what will happen if and what did happen when. That's the focus number one. But in the end, the big goal and dream is to have, similar to what you said, being more on the educational space, show people what happens around our world, because we can't all go to Palmyra as the atoll that we're working on right now. So it will be more tangible and we can see that there is an impact and there is a correlation between what we do here and how it impacts the environment, also how it will come back to us, because the whole global ecosystem is really well connected. And I think a lot of us feel it already with drought here in California, wildfires. Now we had this in New York as well. So we really have to watch out for our planet.
Definitely. We'll have to see if there's a way we can do some sort of workshop around it at Design Lab in the future, because I think it'd be really interesting. Obviously, when I ask you the question, my mind goes to like community engagement. Yes. How are we going to get people learning about it? But obviously, I understand the scientific, advantages are really the priority. But it'll be great once it's more widely available. We can see different ways we might be able to interact with it in the future. Awesome. And so we'll rewind a little bit and go back to the kind of workforce development tools that you guys are training and working on. I think I was talking to you about how many, because I think there's a dream of kind of these factory spaces incorporating this at every level, right? Like being able to have the tool as holistically as possible, supporting their goals of whatever it is, of what they're building, of their team supporting it. But obviously there's an adoption rate we can't really ignore. There's some thresholds of, that people have to get past. And I think also companies, depending on their budget and all these other factors, may not be able to do it all at once, right? But do you have some customers so far or clients who are integrating it at like the fantasy level, like where it's really shown to its fullest?
I'd say it's still in its infancy. And what I describe what we do is mostly still in our labs, and we just start talking to our different businesses, and we talk to warehouses, we talk to assembly facilities. We should always think about safety, especially if we work with heavy equipment. And adoption rate is really slow. I think what some of our clients and also other customers are more into is smaller solutions, more short-term solutions.
Maybe and modules, they can kind of fit into what they're already doing. And
have a service engineer, and that needs a little bit short-term help. But what we want to build is really the whole package of the domain knowledge of the human in the loop, and then also to have this feedback loop about what we assembled. So it will be a process, and also, workforce has a lot of different ages and age classes, and also not only our physical age, but also how long have we been doing tasks. So we have to be really adaptive to the needs. A lot of people still work with pencil and paper, and this will be a slower process to integrate, to give someone like a super fancy cat-looking device, and now this is filming me and what I do. So it's a slow process to bring this to the workforce.
Definitely. All of the kind of, I think, typical responses around new technology in general, right? That so many of us face in the industry. Absolutely.
Just one point I want to make is that with this technology, we don't want to displace human workforce. We want to enable it. We want to empower it. And also, some tasks I think we should do through robotic work for something which is not safe, which is really heavy. That's
taxing
all great.
On the body, unhealthy. Yeah.
That's all great. But there are a lot of tasks we will keep the human workforce, and we will have this technology for you to empower you, to enable you, to put the human in the loop. And that's what's the fun part also about this part of the research. We will not replace a human, but we will enable and empower a human worker.
Definitely. That's so important to note. And something that came up in a conversation I was having with this colleague, Fernando, who works for Citizen Robotics, which is a 3D cement company. They're working on applying that technology to the construction industry. And something else I think on the note about not displacing workers, but really also adding to the workforce is, he was saying, if everybody was building houses right now, we still wouldn't be able to get to the numbers that we need to reach the demand, right? In the next however many years, he was saying, a few decades, right? And so I think there's that piece too, that it's almost like even if we had everyone we could recruit, in the workforce doing these things, the need it's far outweighs, what we're capable of achieving just, I think, with humans at this point, and with humans that want to do those roles, right? So you do need, I think, the addition of some of these technologies to help make processes more efficient. Like you said, replace some of the less safe processes or less healthy, kind of roles, and then be able to also augment and enable the rest of the workforce who's contributing to reaching all of the necessary output.
Absolutely. This is why there's not one solution for all of our, I don't want to say problems, but for the need we have, and we need a good mix and match.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, like you said, that's why it's so important to have modular adaptive solutions that can kind of fit in where needed and not, again, replace or take over.
We're going to take a quick break. When we return, Mareike shares what's next now that the digital twin of the coral reef exists, and later we'll learn how urban hiking and her dog inspire her to learn new ideas. Welcome back to The Bomb. I'm Magenta Strongheart, and I'm back with Siemens research scientist Mareike Kritzler. Her work with AR and creating digital twins is being used to make a broader positive impact on society.
As far as the augmented reality solutions, is there anything else that you guys are, in development in this space that you are also excited to kind of get more traction on or be pushing further?
You mentioned MXD earlier. This is one of our also funding bodies for us. And we just finished a project where we did anomaly detection during the assembly work. Now, it's not a human necessarily in the loop. It's for blue dots on solar panels, and to make sure that these dots are all correctly applied so that the solar panels will be able to do the task they need to when they go out to space, actually. And that was a really great starting point to look more into anomaly detection in a more automated way. And that's another branch. And in the end, they will all be able to relate, modularizing, as you mentioned. When do we need to detect anomalies? When do we need to support a worker? But this is something that we do a lot as well. Visual perception type of tasks.
Mm-hmm. Is there a favorite kind of use case that you've seen? You were telling us about the kind of unique situations with the train factories, which was really interesting to hear, that you guys were touring. But as far as places that you've gotten to, meet individuals working in these spaces, but also get a new perspective on a process you maybe weren't familiar with before.
As you mentioned that the train manufacturing, I say train manufacturing side because this was really eye-opening, because when we think about the manufacturing of cars, we see these videos of big car manufacturers with conveyor belts and the robots, and everything goes in big quantities. Almost everything on these shop floors is automated. But then you see the opposite side where you have these huge pieces of equipment that you have to bring. So we see there's a huge range, even if you manufacture something that is very, very technical and very thought out, that sometimes you need a lot of manual labor. And that this was interesting for me to see that we have super high tech facilities, also Siemens own facilities when you build electronics, versus something that is a little bit more rough and tumble, I'd say.
Yeah. Is there a project that you can't wait to get your hands on in the next 5 or 10 years? Would be your dream project to work on that you see maybe coming down the pipeline? Or maybe you don't even see it on the horizon, but you're I want to get Siemens technology to take it on. It's out there.
This is more I think the coral reef one is already something to really branch out, but everything where we can put technology to good use. And I'm thinking about safety applications where we have a mixture of the AR and machine vision technologies to keep workers safe, that we alert someone before something happens. Mm-hmm. So a little bit of this preventive and prediction. And it's if you go there, make sure you wear your gloves. If you go over there, Fred fell down the train last week. So you really can make sure people are going to be safe while they will do their work. And that would be really something to bring all these technologies together for a greater good.
Absolutely. And with with your lab, you guys work with a number of students, right? They come through the space as interns, I would imagine, and supporting the research that's being done. With that, what do you think will be changing as far as how students can prepare for opportunities in a lab like this in the future? If people are interested in getting involved in this space, maybe younger listeners who want to prepare to be in, this kind of innovative research around new technologies, growing technologies, what's kind of the pathway you see, or any recommendations you would give for them?
Times definitely have changed, and we see technology much more ubiquitous around us. Even though we think everything is at our fingertips, someone has to make it. So I think if you want to be in a space like this for technology, computer science, these skills will be the key. You have to know how to program, otherwise you can't do it. There are different roles along the line. You don't necessarily have to be a programmer, but you have to understand what it takes to get from A to B, which is mostly programming in that space. And ideas, sometimes they come overnight, but sometimes ideas take a while to ripe. They come by chance. Just be open-minded and try to experience as many things as you can, so you will be able to conceive these ideas and then also communicate the ideas. I think communication will be a key to really, this is what I want to say, what the person understood, to really make sure you can be on the same level.
Definitely. I think that's those are good. That's good advice for anyone who's looking at, kind of their future career ideas and things, and considering what paths they want to take. The skill sets, absolutely staying curious and open and observing and trying a lot of different things. That's how you learn, creative problem solving, which is useful across disciplines, across industries, across roles, and definitely that communication piece. That's always huge, because at the end of the day, we are humans working with humans, and you need to know how to communicate in different spaces and effectively to to get big projects like this important.
But if your language is Java or C, C++, there will be a way as well. You just have to then find the right person that's willing to translate this into maybe more broader human understandable spoken words.
Definitely. All right. So I want to be conscientious of our time here, and I'm going to wrap it up with just 2 kind of rapid fire questions that we ask all of our guests on the show here. So what's one thing outside of technology that's inspiring you these days?
I'm a big animal lover, and I have a dog, and to learn how to communicate with him is something really interesting to me, to have the science behind the human and the animal behavior and learn everything about positive reinforcement training, where I can really nerd out into that science.
Yes. Do you have your dog? Have you gotten him the giant buttons on the floor that he presses to say, I love you and I want food?
No, he tells me he loves me by licking my face.
There you go. It's funny. I can't remember the name of the book. I'll have to find it and tell you after. But I was reading this book recently that was about this chemist. It was fiction, but I think there's some truth to this because I looked it up afterwards. There was this chemist who was trying to train her dog, and like they joke throughout the book, you hear the dog's perspective as well a few times. And he says that by the end, he learns like 350 words. She's like really adamant that she can teach the dog all these words, and everyone thinks she's crazy. But I think this is actually a possible thing you can do if you're really diligent about it, because if they can understand walk and food or whatever it is, why can't they learn more?
And it's the semantics in the end. I can say crocodile and mean something, but it's the way you teach and the repetitions. It's really interesting.
Yeah. So I hope that you're teaching your dog 350 words. I'll be finding out, yes. Following up in the future. I want to meet this genius dog. What's your dog's name?
Copper.
Copper. Oh, that's so sweet. I like that. That's a good one. Pretty original. I don't know if I've heard Copper before. And also relevant to the electronic space. I actually wonder if we have some other EEs that have some, pets named Copper and things. All right. And last but not least, what is on your personal bill of materials?
Well, my bill of materials is more a bill of events of like non-tangible things, activities, exactly. It's also a pro tip since COVID. Urban hiking is just, back in the day, you say, I'm going to walk. Yes. But especially here.
I like this urban hiking because of the hills.
It's the hills in San Francisco, and you discover a lot of great things. Go on a walk, put on comfortable shoes, or go barefoot. Maybe not here. And you will discover a lot of interesting things, people, pets, animals, coyotes, skunks, and it will open your mind and really look for the small things. You will see little plants just growing in the crack of a little planter, and that's really urban walking, urban hiking, and then go to the beach. Another thing, if you want to relax and just see what nature does when the waves come in and the windy and gray day, it's also always great. And just kindness, that we are kind to one another and our pets and our co-workers. I think that will be something that makes me thrive, and I would like to share.
That's beautiful. I think those are super important and relatable to a lot of folks. Outdoor time and kindness, the key ingredients to a good life. So thank you so much. And I think we'll definitely follow up this conversation in the future. I'm going to find out about how we can incorporate the digital coral reef at Design Lab for some upcoming festivities. And thank you for the time today.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
That was my discussion with Mareike Kritzler, who heads up the Smart Machine Vision and Visualization Research Group for Siemens in Berkeley, California. I think it's so awesome to learn more about some of the practical workforce training applications for AR, and I can't wait to see how digital twins can not only help environmental scientists with their research, but also engage the broader community and allow them more engaging access to that research. If you like The Bomb, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share the show wherever you get your podcasts. You can follow SupplyFrame and Hackaday on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Design Lab at SupplyFrame Design Lab on Instagram and Twitter. The Bomb is a SupplyFrame podcast produced by me, Magenta Stronghart, and Ryan Tillotson, written by Maggie Bowles and edited by Daniel Ferreira. Theme music is by Anna Hogbin, show art by Thomas Schneider. Special thanks to Giovanni Salinas, Bruce Dominguez, Thomas Woodward, Jin Kumar, Jordan Clark, the entire SupplyFrame team, and you, our wonderful listeners. I'm your host, Magenta Stronghart. See you next week.